are believed to follow the probability distribution shown below. Okay, so colleagues, here on this table, this X represents the profits. Okay, so here you've got a loss of negative 2,000, loss of negative 1,000, 0 is when you break even, then you have a profit of 1,000, profit of 2,000, and profit of 3,000. So across the top, X is our profits, okay? Then below, our probabilities. There are our probabilities below. So the probability of making a loss of 2,000 is 0.1 or 10%. Okay? If you invest in the airtime business, the probability of making a loss of $2,000 is 10%. The probability of making a loss of $1,000 again is also 10%, 0.1. Okay? The probability of breaking even is 20%. The probability of making a profit of 1,000, we haven't got the values, okay? Probability of making a profit of 2,000, 0.3, which is also 30%. The probability of making a profit of 3,000 is 10%. Okay, colleagues, this is how you interpret this table here. Okay. So, A, determine the value of K. Alright. So remember, as I said, probabilities always add up to 100%. Okay. So you are going to form an equation adding all of these probabilities, since they're in decimal, so these they have to add up to 1. Okay. So you make an equation like this one here. So I'm going to put this sigma p open brackets x equals x. What you're saying is, when you add up the probabilities, what this is saying is, when you add up the probabilities, you are going to get 1 which represents 100%. Okay? So 0.1 plus 0.1 plus 0.2 plus k plus 0.3 plus 0.1 equals 1. Okay, you add 0.1 plus 0.1, 0.2 plus 0.2, 0.4 plus 0.3, 0.7 plus 0.1, 0.8. So our equation drops down to k plus 0.8 equals 1. Okay, then to find our value of k, you take this negative 0.8 over the equal sign. So k equals 1 minus 0.8, which gives us 0.2. Okay, which is 20%. Okay, colleagues. So, in simple terms, what we are saying here, the probability of making a profit of 1,000 is 20%. That 0.2 that we found, yes, it is 20%. Any questions, colleagues? Part B, find the probability that the airtime vending, number 1, makes a loss. Okay, not find out if the airtime vending makes a loss. Okay, so we're going to look at the losses on our table here. Okay, we got probability of 0.1 making a loss of negative 2,000. We also got another probability of 0.1, which is also 10%, of making a loss of negative 1,000. So I want to find out overall what is the probability of making a loss. Okay, either negative 1,000 or 2,000. So this is how we are going to do it. Okay, we say the probability of making a loss. The P loss means the probability of making a loss equals the probability of making a loss of 2,000 plus the probability of making a loss of 1,000. Okay. The reason why I'm just adding these two, because these are the only probabilities that are attached to losses. Okay. You cannot include this probability of breaking even. You cannot include this probability of a profit, even this probability of a profit, and this other probability of a profit. You only want what is the probability of making a loss, whether negative 2,000 or negative 1,000. Alright? So basically we're just adding these two probabilities, 0.1 plus 0.1. So we put it like this. Probability of making a loss of 2,000 is 0.1. Probability of making a loss of 1,000 is 0.1. So 0.1 plus 0.1 equals 0.2, which is telling us the probability of making a loss if you invest in the airtime vending business is 20%. Any questions? For those who have joined, we are looking at question 6 of the assignment.
Yeah, I've just joined in this case, yes, sir.
Yes, this is the question we are looking at here. It's on probabilities, okay? Yes. The next part, what's the probability he realizes a profit of at least 2,000? Okay. So if you invest in this airtime business, what is the probability? The lowest profit you're going to make is 2,000. So you come on the table again here. Okay. We're going to look for probabilities of 2,000 and greater. Okay. Because when they say at least, it means your minimum is that number. So when they say a profit of at least 2,000, so this is the minimum profit. Okay. So one find what is the probability of making a profit of at least 2,000? Meaning you can make a profit of 2,000, or you can make a profit of 3,000. Okay. So we're going to put it like this mathematically. What this is saying here, probability of making a profit of at least 2,000 equals the probability of making the actual 2,000 plus the probability of making 3,000. So the probability of making 2,000, 0.3. Probability of making 3,000, 0.1. So 0.3 plus 0.1 is 0.4. Okay, so the probability of making a profit of at least 2,000 is 40%. Okay, any questions?
So this formula, you just need to have it in your head.
Yes. They are given to you. There's a special document that Dr. Arduino gives out where they have the formula. Okay, so you don't need to memorize it. You will see this formula there. Yes. Most of this course, especially the topics dealing with probability or statistics, those formulae you don't need to memorize. Okay. expected earnings. So this is asking us to find the average profit. Okay. When you're dealing with probability and you hear the word expected, think average. Okay, colleagues? So they're telling us to find what is the average profit if you invest in this airtime business. Okay. Find the expected earnings. So this is the formula for the expected earnings. Okay. What this formula is saying is you are going to add up, okay, the product of the profit times the probability. That's what this formula is saying. Okay, you are adding up the products of the profits multiplied by their probabilities. Okay, x multiplied by px. Okay, let me just bring the table so that we see what is going on here. So what you are doing here is each profit, remember the profits are these x values here. Each profit, you're multiplying it by its probability. Okay, colleagues, that's what's happening here. Each profit, you multiply by the probability. Okay, so you say negative 2,000 multiplied by 0.1 plus negative 1,000 multiplied by 0.1 plus 0 multiplied by 0.2 plus 1,000 multiplied by 0.2 plus 2,000 multiplied by 0.3 plus 3,000 multiplied by 0.1. Okay, this has been done here. Okay. Yes. So after you do your multiplications, okay, you get these values here, and you add them up. And when you add them up, you find your expected profit or expected earnings is $800. Which means if you invest in this airtime vending business, on average, expect to make a profit of $800. That's what we're saying. Okay? On average, expect to make a profit of $800. Any questions?
So these negatives, they won't affect anything?
They will affect, sir. They will affect the average profit. Because as you can see here, negative 200 plus negative 100. So they will have an effect.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. Okay.
Next, you find the standard deviation of the profits for the airtime vending business. So, colleagues, standard deviation, okay, it just tells you how far on average your data points are from the average. Okay. For example, if your average is 0, or no, let me say if your average is 1 and you have a standard deviation of, let's say, 3, standard deviation of 3, okay, it means on average, so that this is our average here. The next point is going to be 3 units away, so 5 plus 3, 8. Okay, the next point is going to be another 3 units, 8 plus 3, 11. Okay, if you go down this side to the left, 5 minus 3, that is 2. 2 minus 3, that is negative 1. Okay. So standard deviation is just telling you how far on average your data points are from the mean or the average. Okay. So now a higher standard deviation means the profits that you're going to earn when you invest in this airtime vending business, they're going to be far away from that $800. Okay. If the standard deviation is high, your profits are going to be way far from that $800. Meaning the business is a volatile business, it fluctuates. You can have sunny days, you have good days, bad days. Okay. But if the standard deviation is small, it means the profits that you expect to get will be near that 800 value. Okay, colleagues? So let's calculate our standard deviation. So this is the formula for the standard deviation. You can do it in 2 ways. You can first get the variance, which is the standard deviation squared. After you get the variance, to get the standard deviation, it's just the square root of the variance. Okay, the standard deviation is just the square root of your variance. Okay. So we need to first find our variance. Okay. After we find our variance, we're going to get the standard deviation. So let me bring this table again and explain what the formula is saying. Okay, so in the list of formulae that you'll be given in the exam, you'll just be given this formula: EX squared minus EX squared. Okay, the formula will just be presented to you like this. Okay, so what this means when we simplify this formula, it is saying each profit you're going to square each profit and multiply it by its probability. You're going to square each profit and multiply it by its probability. And then you're going to add them up. That's why you're seeing sigma here. When you see sigma there, it means you're going to add up. Then after you add up each squared profit and the probability, you're going to subtract it from the average profit squared. This EX was that average profit we got here. Okay. As you can see, EX, expected profit, which was our average. Okay. So what the formula is saying, each profit, remember X here, these are the profits. So each profit you square it. So you're going to say negative 2,000 squared multiplied by 0.1. You're going to say negative 1,000 squared multiplied by 0.1. You're going to say 0 squared multiplied by 0.2. you're going to get 1000 squared multiplied by, we calculated here, 0.2. Okay. We're going to get 2000 squared multiplied by 0.3. And you're going to get 3000 squared multiplied by 0.1. Okay. That's what's being done here, colleagues. Okay. Each profit, you're going to square it and multiply by the probability. And then you add them up. And then you're going to subtract by the average profit. As you can see here, this 800 squared, which is the average profit. You're going to square that, the average profit, 800 squared. Okay? So as you can see, these are the workings. Negative 2000 squared, 4 million. 4 million times 0.1. Negative 1000 squared, 1 million. 0 squared, 0. 1000 squared, 1 million. 2000 squared, 4 million. 3000 squared, 9 million. Okay? And you're multiplying by the probabilities. Minus, when we square the average profit, 800 squared, we get 640,000. Okay? So the first thing you need to do is you need to add up these values after you multiplied the squared profits by the probabilities. You need to add all these values up. Okay? And you get 2,800,000. Okay? So do not subtract this 640 just yet. You subtract it at the end after you've added up. So 2.8 million minus 640, you get a variance of 2,160,000. Then to get our standard deviation, you're going to get the square root of the variance. The square root of the variance is 2,160,000. The square root of 2,160,000 is 1,469.69. So let's visualize what is being said here. Our average profit is 800. Remember, standard deviation, how far the points are from the average. Okay, so our average is 800. So to the left, to the right, you're going to say 800 plus 1,469.69. Just add this. 800 plus 1,469.69. So we have 2,000.
269.693.
Yes. And then 800 minus 1,000 for the same standard deviation. Minus this value, what do we get?
Negative 669.69.
Negative 669.69. So colleagues, think of this as the range of what you can earn if you invest in this. Okay? The standard deviation is giving you what range you can earn. Okay? So if you invest, you might not get $800 that year, you might get $2,000. best case scenario. Okay. The next year you invest, you might not even make a profit, you might make a loss of negative 1,000 here. Oh, this negative, let's say 600. You might make a loss of negative $600. The other year you invest, you might make a profit of $1,000. The other year you might make a loss of negative $300. So in simple words, what this is saying is that your returns are going to fluctuate because this industry is volatile. Okay, it's got a high standard deviation, meaning when you invest, you might get profits that are way greater than 800 or way less than 800. Okay. Yes. Any questions? So this is an investment for a risk taker. Okay? Risk takers who invest to make big profits. Okay? Because with a high standard deviation, as I said, don't expect to be around the $800 range. Your profits will vary. Okay? So such an investment is for risk takers. Now if the standard deviation was small, so that we can really see what's, if let's say the standard deviation was 10, standard deviation was 10, so here you have 810, here you have 790. Okay. The range of your profits is going to be very near that $800, very near that 800 average. That year you might make a return of 809, you might make a return of 799, you might make a return of 801, you might make a return of 799. Okay. Your returns are very near the average. So that's a more stable industry. Okay, colleagues? So a higher standard deviation, higher risk, because your profits will fluctuate. A lower standard deviation, low risk, because your profits will be stable. Okay, and that's what most of us want. If you're investing in an industry, wouldn't you want your returns to be more stable than fluctuating greatly? Let me hear your views, Mr. Divine.
What was the question?
If you're investing in an industry or in something, would you want your returns to be fluctuating, or do you want them to be more stable?
Definitely would want them to be more stable.
Yes, so you would want a lower standard deviation.
Yes, sir.
Yes. What about, let's see, Madam Ruth? If you are investing, would you want returns that fluctuate, or do you want returns that are stable?
Returns that are stable.
Yes. Madam Elizabeth? So on average, basically, we want stable things when we're investing, okay? Not most of us are risk takers, all right? There might be some people who are risk takers and say, okay, I'll invest hoping to make a very big profit, okay? And if that profit comes, it was worth the risk, okay? But when the loss comes, okay, when the loss comes, it will be bad. It will be very bad. So part D, is the airtime vending business likely to be successful? Explain. Okay. So there are going to be many criteria we're going to use to evaluate this industry. The first criteria we're going to look at the average return. Okay. The average return is a positive value. So that's a good thing. No one is going to invest in any industry where your average return is negative, because it means on average you'll be making a loss. Okay, so that's the first tick. We can say, okay, that's a good sign. Our average return is a positive number. Okay. The second criteria is we're going to compare the probabilities of making a profit versus making a loss. Okay, we want to compare what's the probability of making a profit in this industry and what's the probability of making a loss in this industry. If you come back to your table, or if you remember earlier on, we say the probability of making a loss in this industry is 20%. Okay, we did this. Probability of making a loss 0.1 plus 0.1, 20%. 20% chance of making a loss in this industry. Okay. Then there is a 10% chance you break even. No loss, no profit. 10% chance you break even. Okay. Then for the profits, 20% plus 30% plus 10%. There is a 60% chance you make a profit. We would agree this is a good sign. Okay? The probability of making a profit is greater than the probability of making a loss. Okay? Because if the probability of making a loss was greater, you wouldn't want to invest. Okay? So since the probability of making a profit is greater than the probability of making a loss, that's another good sign. Okay. Yes. Now here is where it just becomes tricky, because the standard deviation, okay, it determines if you're a risk taker or if you're a conservative person. If you're a conservative person, do not engage in this investment. If you're conservative, where you want stable things, yes, average profit is high, and probability of making a profit is greater than the probability of making a loss. Right? But this industry fluctuates. It's a risky industry because of the high standard deviation. So if you're conservative, do not engage in this because it's high risk. Okay. If you're a risk taker, engage in this, because a risk taker, you're going for high risks, high standard deviation. Okay. So the answer can be in two formats. For a conservative person, no. For a risk taker, yes. And is the thing likely to be successful? Of course it is likely to be successful.